Welcome back to the channel. My name is Frank, and in this video we're going to be talking about all the first touches that you would need if you're a novice soccer player. So help us out by helping yourself out by watching it all the way until the end. We'll talk about stationery and the key details such as your form and the looseness of your body to make sure you can absorb that pass to the way you want it. Are you ready? Let's get going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be covering is ground controlling the ball with inside. So the pass is coming on the ground. So little details, Ben. Can you maybe give us some ideas on what we might be looking for here?
Definitely first the shape of the foot. So I want to have my heel down and my toe pointed up as I receive it, because that's going to keep my ankle locked.
Brilliant. Right, so the second thing I would say is about how small can you get when you're receiving the ball. So which means, Ben, how tall are you?
6'4".
Tall
6'5" sometimes.
Right? Yeah, depending on the day, depending on what kind of shoes he's wearing. Right, on the weekend, 6'5". Anyway, so he's 6'4". When he's controlling the ball, maybe we want to get him to about 6 foot tall. So how do we do that? How can we do that?
The plant foot that I'm not receiving with, I'm going to bend that knee and I'm going to lean into it as I'm receiving that ball.
Nice. So again, we want to get low, again, by keeping our feet about shoulder width, maybe a tad bit wider, and then we get into our athletic shape, which is done by bending our knees so slightly. So again, I'm 6 foot tall, Ben's 6'4". He want to get about down to 6 foot tall. I want to get down to about maybe 5'7", 5'6". Again, I want to get low. The closer I can be to the ball, the more composure it's going to provide me to control that ball safely. Right, so Ben's going to demonstrate for us without the ball. Take a look at his body shape.
So as that ball comes in, I'm getting my feet shoulder width apart, getting low, and then I'm going to open my foot up, heel down, toe up, and receive through the center of the ball.
Again, tiny little bit of detail here that you're going to have to pay attention or watch out for is when you're controlling the ball with that inside, you don't want your heel to be touching the ground. You want to be just an inch or two above the ground, because if I am intact with the ground, that ball might pop up. So again, shoulder width, getting low, your heel down, toes up, and inch or two above the ground. Right, so that's the first step even before we control the ball. So we call that the pre-contact. Now, how about the contact and the post-contact? So, Ben, here's a question for you. Do we make the contact with our foot out here, or maybe next to the plant foot, or slightly behind? And then post-contact, after we make the contact, what are some of the actions that we might have to pay attention to?
So I like to make the contact with my foot maybe slightly in front or right to the front of my plant foot, and then I'm going to keep my knee loose, especially depending on the weight of the pass. So if it's fired in there, my leg has a little bit of give here, so I can take some of that speed out of the ball as I receive it.
So what you're telling us is that you want to keep that knee loose, so that way it's this motion that you can create to absorb that ball. Is that correct?
100%, especially if someone's firing a pass in. If I've got my legs stiff, then that ball is just going to bounce off.
Right, so maybe we can show them.
Let's do it.
So Ben, tell us about where your planted foot should be pointing.
So I want to keep the toes of my plant foot pointed towards where the ball is coming from, and that's going to help keep my hips in line, so that as I receive the ball here, my hips are square to that ball coming into my feet.
Right, so that's the absolute basic of controlling the ball with our inside when the ball is coming on the ground. Okay, so obviously now if you want that touch to be directional, yes, we do need to move our hips, yes, we do need to move our inside in different ways, again, but this is the absolute basics of you just receiving the pass and dead on controlling the ball. First step, always start with the first steps before you start moving to different directions. Now the next one is going to be controlling the ball with the bottom of the foot, so the sole. Okay,
So Frank, what are some pre-contact steps that I would need to take if I want to receive with the sole of my foot?
Right, so Ben and everyone else, so the pre-contact for this one, which is your body shape as the ball is approaching to you, is going to be quite similar to controlling ball with your inside, okay? This one, yes, you want your hips here, but now, when we're making the contact on the ball, right, the foot shape we want to take is heel down, toes up, which is the same foot shape as the one before. But the important thing here, naturally our body becomes narrower if my hips are squared to the ball and I have my one foot up in this way, right? So what I'm going to do now from here, I'm going to open up my plant foot just so slightly, so my foot is pointing outside, and then stick my foot out this way, which will give me a little more balance to stay still, right? Compared to this one here, this is more like trying to stand on a rope with just one foot, which is very, very difficult. But if I just open up and have more surface for the balance, then that's going to help me. Again, next one, for the contact, as it comes, you do not want to raise your knee high and try and make this stopping motion or stepping motion. What we want to do instead is from back to forward. Your heel stays closer to the ground rather than this. You might have experienced, or you might have seen, whether as the ball is coming, we just might have seen that. So in order for us to avoid that, we come from the back to forward, right? It's this motion here. In terms of contact then, we try and make the contact on the tip of the toes here, rather than the middle of the foot, or even in the back. That's what we want to avoid. If I have my heel down, toes up, that ball should stop. That ball should stop nicely on the toes, on the balls of the toes. Does that make sense? So again, as the ball is coming, I'm gonna get low, open my plant foot just a little bit, and then it's this motion to tip of the toes to control that pass. This way, okay? Notice how this leg is stretched or extended. It's not so close to my body, because then it's going to extend my planted foot or planted leg, which is what we want to avoid. So I want to get low, I want to get wide on my stance, and then I play. In terms of post contact, what do we do after we make that touch? Well, there's so many ways of going about this, right? A lot of times there could be a defender here, you're trying to stay wide. As the ball is coming, you could control, roll back, and then play safe. Or you can play it to your advantage. You could try and turn and then strike. Or, yes, you could even move sideways and then face the defender. Right, so we just covered inside and the sole. The only surface of the foot that's left is the outside. So Ben, can you tell us some of the pre-contact that we got to think about in order for us to successfully control the ball with the outside?
So pre-contact, some of the fundamentals are going to stay the same here. So I want to have my feet shoulder width apart. Obviously I want to have my knees bent, but since I'm going to use the outside of my foot, I've got to be able to show that outside surface to the ball as it's coming in. So I'm going to open up my plant foot here and almost be side on here as I'm receiving that ball.
Okay, how about the width of your feet and the foot shape? How do we want to approach that?
Yeah, so the foot shape, I want to roll my foot inside so that I'm showing more surface on the top of my foot. So don't want to keep that foot straight like this. Can I roll it inside? And then I always want to keep my feet separated here. That way I've got a little bit of looseness in my knee. So if that ball gets fired into me, I can still absorb that impact as I'm receiving it.
Lovely stuff. So when you say keeping your feet separated, does that mean, is it shoulder width or narrower than that or just wider?
Usually about shoulder width. Obviously sometimes it will depend, but I definitely don't want it to be super narrow.
Right. So it's just an athletic position where you're going to find yourself a little more comfortable and have full balance. Is that correct?
100%.
Awesome. So again, we just talked about the pre-contact and a little bit about the contact as well, because on the contact, Ben talked about how we have to absorb it by keeping the knee loose. So should we show some demonstrations?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Frank,
Yes.
what about if the ball is coming in the air?
Ooh, now we're talking. You remember, the ball doesn't always come on the ground. So the concept that we want to keep when you're receiving the ball from the air is very simple. Let me do a little test with you, Ben. I'm going to be throwing the ball to your stomach. I want you to catch the ball with one hand, using one hand. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go again. Where did your hand go?
Well, like,
Was it under? Was it behind? Was somewhere in between?
little behind, little underneath.
Okay, right. Now how about when I throw the ball up in the air? Where did your hand go?
Definitely underneath.
Definitely underneath. So we want to keep the same concept here, Ben. When the ball is coming directly at me or to me, we want to make sure that this foot shape, if I'm controlling the ball with my inside, I want to make sure my inside, which is the contact surface, not to be facing dead straight, but slightly underneath. I can do that by bending my left knee a little bit, getting lower, and then opening this left knee. You want to show the inside of the left knee. I want to make sure I show the bottom of my foot to the ball, or where the ball is coming from. Can you see the bottom of my foot?
Yeah.
If I keep that shape, I can see my inside a little bit more. Okay, so the goal in general is to roll up that inside to face up, so that way I can cradle it to meet the contact, well, when I make the contact. So now from here, when I make the contact, my foot's out here, my joints, both my joints, my knee and my hip, they all need to move. They all need to be pulled in order for me to absorb that heat, so that way the ball drops nicely. That was pretty good. Okay, lovely.
Nice.
Let's go one more.
Nice.
Class.
Oh, yeah.
Class. Right, receiving aerial, same thing, using the concepts. This time we'll be talking about the inside. So how do we do that?
So very similar foot shape to the last one. Still want to have my knee bent, get in low. I'm going to show my foot so that it's almost pointed up to the sky, because as that ball is dropping in higher, I want to be able to get the inside of my foot underneath the ball.
I think the really important thing here is, if the goal for us is to bring the ball down, we don't necessarily want to make the contact with the foot all the way here, because after you make the contact and you pull the foot down, you still create that, you still give that much space for the ball to come down, which might cause the ball to bounce. So I would say, I'm not sure if you agree to this, but I would say try and make the contact, if you can, down here.
Yeah.
Right, with the same foot shape, but meet the ball here, so that way when you make the contact, after you make the contact, the ball has very little room to bounce. So that's going to help us for our second action, which could be a pass, dribbling,
Shot.
hiding the ball. Yeah, exactly. Shoots, right? Or shooting, shots, right? So, yeah, same body shape. Here, athletic, inside facing up, down here, bringing the ball down. Shall we give it a go?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
There we go. Yeah.
Some good touches there, man.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, of course.
But what about if I don't want to use the inside? What other surfaces could I use?
Well, if we're talking foot, we can be using our instep, right? I think the key thing here, in general, when you're controlling the ball, it's about keeping the right form, yet keeping your body loose. So, and this one is going to be essentially crucial, because if we're using the top of our foot, or which we call instep, but if we keep it locked and rigid, the ball will bounce off. And probably not the best example just right now, but think of it as throwing the ball against the wall. It's always going to bounce out. So what do you have to do instead? Well, if this is my foot, I need to keep my foot almost dangling, keep it loose, right? And instead of using the fine instep, which works like a knuckle, I'm going to try and use my almost the sections or the segments of the toes instead, because those are a lot softer and they're more flexible than the knuckle that I have on the foot. So give it a little toss. Watch how the ball just dies naturally. because I'm keeping my foot loose and I am absorbing it. Right, should we give it a go?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I don't want to meet the ball when I'm up here. Don't give it that much room for the ball to bounce. I want to meet the ball down here, okay? Here we go. Look at that. It's like magnet. Another one. Woohoo! Let's go again. One more. There. Right, Ben, so we just covered inside, instep. Obviously, there are the wedge control, outside touch, but if we were to go a little bit higher up on our body, what can we use?
This is one that I love, using our thigh to control it.
Okay.
So, a couple important things with this one. I see this all the time. I'm sure you've seen it a lot too. Ball's coming in and we're throwing our knee up at it. A couple reasons we don't want to do that, right? One, I'm going to throw and force the ball all over the place. And two, this front part of my knee, if I'm throwing it, I'm probably going to make contact up here. A lot of bones here. Same thing, ball's going to be bouncing all over the place. So it's a lot simpler than that. I want to focus on this upper part of my thigh, and as the ball comes in, I'm just letting it meet my thigh, and then it's going to drop right to my feet.
Think of it like, rather than us going out to make the contact, we are letting the ball to come to us.
Yep, just waiting, being patient, and then letting that ball come right into it.
And then we use the upper half of our thigh?
Yeah, definitely the upper half.
Okay. Again, if the goal is for us to bring the ball down, we don't necessarily want to do that to cause the ball to pop up. Awesome.
Yep. All right, so we've covered the inside of the foot, the instep, and the thigh. We missing anything else?
Is it the chest?
Ah, good one, the chest.
Yes, this happens a lot in the game as well, right? So just like any other control that we just went over, it's all about how well you keep your form and how loose you can keep your body. But I would say this one is so important because a lot of times you get very stiff because you're scared of the ball. I get it, it's so close to your body, but you want to keep yourself really loose and soft, okay? So let's talk about the form. First off, starting with the feet, we want to be wide here, so that way you don't lose your balance. Knees are bent, okay, a flat position as always. Now the hands, the arms, they're not down here. They're up here, about your shoulder level, and your hands maybe about your eye level. Now, first off, this is to protect your own space, so if the defender comes, we can feel the defender. Yep, I mean, we might not be able to push and control with the chest as effectively, but because we feel the defender, we can think about our next action really quickly. So arms are not down here, they're up here, and shoulders are rolled in to create this little bit of arch, just like a bowl to receive, right? You don't want to stick your chest out because when the ball comes to your chest, it's gonna bounce out, which is not ideal. That's not what we want. Okay, so the full form. I am here. When I make the contact, I am on my toes, heels a couple inches off the ground, knees are then naturally bent. From here, I lean back a little bit with my arms up here, and then with my angled chest, I then receive just like a bowl. Then it should, in theory, drop nicely for my next action. So I'm here, lightly on my feet. Oof. Here again. Under, pass. Notice how I'm trying to get under the ball. And I'm not trying to stick my chest out, I'm trying to receive. I'm trying to bring the ball down. Hug it as if you're trying to hug someone that's a lot taller than you. Give that person a full hug, or in this case, give this ball a full hug. Ow, this ball is hard. Yep. Ooh. Bring it and pass. So again, what I just did was if the ball comes goes away from me, I then pull it back with my second touch, like this, and then I can play. Just a little thing. Again, I'm gonna try and receive it, absorb. There. One more. There.
All right, so there you have it. We covered receiving on the ground with the inside, with the sole, with the outside. We covered receiving out of the air, using the inside, using the instep, using the thigh, using the chest. Frank, there's a couple things that I noticed here that are similar between every single one of those techniques. What do you think that is?
Right, I would say the common theme here is going to be on the correctness and the details of your form. It's about how smaller or how low you can get into your athletic positions, and how about keeping your body really loose, right? Just being relaxed. And obviously that's going to come as you practice more and more, and maybe under pressure as well. So the more experience that you have with these types of touches, the better it's the better it's going to get. Again, remember, if you cannot control the ball, no matter how it comes to you, the ball is always going to be your biggest opponent. Whether it's 7v7, 3 aside, 5 aside, 7 aside, 9 aside, 11 aside, forget the opposition. If you cannot control that, the ball, forget it, okay? So that's what we're talking about here, just being able to control. Obviously, there are a lot more other types of touches. We can talk about the wedge with the inside, sole, outside, even receiving aerial with the head, just to pop it up a little bit and then bring it down. So there's multiple different ways different variations that we can cover. But these, I would say, these are the absolute basics that we can talk about.
So the wedge control, what's that?
Oh, that's a good one. All right, it's essentially a control that happens. You know what? Give us a like. Once we get to 100, we'll show you what it is and how to do it precisely. Thanks for watching.
Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. Now it's time to grab a ball, get a friend, a parent, get out, try it on your own.
Fundamentals is high performance, boys and gals.